Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 991. Mass Production. Although there was still a distance until the blood of yellow flame finished growing completely, Jun Mo Xie was still very satisfied with its growth. After all, Jun Mo Xie would not need to carry out a slaughter if there wasn't a need to do so, just to satisfy the needs of blood of yellow flame. Because a divine sword born of too much slaughter would instead create unstable effects. If the blood of yellow flame turned into nothing but a mindless bloodthirsty weapon, it would defeat his initial intentions. Thus, he would only draw his sword when he had to kill. That way, the sword would follow his will, instead of its own bloodthirst. That was the difference in quality. Only a sword nurtured like that would truly belong to oneself, never being in danger of going out of control. Yellow flame, do you know the conflicted feelings in my heart? Jun Mo Xie sighed as he made the blood of yellow flame hover in front of him. The blood of yellow flame hummed lightly in response, seemingly replying to him. Jun Mo Xie could feel the despondent gloom in the sword, and he laughed. Right now, you are the only thing that understands me. The matters here, it's truly difficult to be as carefree as before. The divine sword flashed, as a thick killing intent surged out of it. You're not trying to say that we should kill everyone, right? Jun Mo Xie laughed bitterly. How could it be so easy? The most difficult things in life are the problems of the heart. It has nothing to do with the strength of the enemy. If the entire misty illusory manner is my enemy, I wouldn't be so troubled. The blood of yellow flame flew up lazily and with a clang, it directly shot back into its sheath. Clearly, it was confused and couldn't be bothered with Jun Mo Xie's complaining any longer. Directly returning to sleep. Feck. Jun Mo Xie scolded laughingly. Nurturing a sword, to think that I've also nurtured a temper from it. With his thoughts in disarray, Jun Mo Xie walked towards the spirit vein to check on Green Hunter's condition. Looking at the green-robed beauty deep in sleep before him, Jun Mo Xie suddenly felt an indescribable thump in his heart as he looked at the same peaceful look on her face when she blocked the lethal attack for him. Ever since he transferred her here, he'd been coming in several times every day to accompany her, talk to her, transfer some spiritual qi to her, and massage her muscles to prevent them from atrophying. 3 times a day, he would infuse 3 drops of spirit fruit juice into her abdomen to maintain her life force. As time passed, Jun Mo Xie began to understand why she had sacrificed herself, throwing her body in front of him that time. And because he understood, his heart hurt even more. Because of love. And this was still a hopeless love. A love that was bound to yield no results. Since I can't get your person, I'll just sacrifice myself for you. Because he was the lover of her most respected eldest sister Mei Shuiyan. Was it truly worth it? You're just lying there, not saying a single word. But you don't even know the feelings of the person whom you sacrificed yourself to save. Jun Mo Xie mumbled. Hurry up and wake up, Green Hunter. I will not let you be sad anymore. Whatever you want to get, you can have. The same faint gentle smile hung on the side of Green Hunter's lips. AI. Jun Mo Xie sighed heavily. I will definitely make you wake up as soon as possible. And I will also take you to explore the world. View the tall mountains and great rivers of the world. No matter what it takes, I will let you wake up. Don't worry. Green Hunter. Your love is not a hopeless one. You will definitely get all that your heart desires. After looking at her for a bit longer, Jun Mo Xie sighed heavily and walked away to another side. On the other side of the spirit vein was a half-meter deep pond that he'd carved out for the exquisite lotus. If he dug too deeply, Jun Mo Xie was afraid that the golden jade fluid would flow out, so he only dug for half a meter. Although the Heaven-Earth spirit vein was not as wide as the pond at the Heaven Saint Palace, its length was quite impressive, stretching over 10 zhang long. It wouldn't be a problem even if there were many more exquisite lotuses. A thick layer of mist covered the entire man-made pond. That was not any ordinary mist, it was the condensation of the purest heaven-earth spiritual qi. The water in the pond was incomparably clear, all of them being the essence of heaven-earth spiritual qi. Even if all the experts of the Heaven Saint Palace and Misty Illusory Manor joined hands, they would not be able to produce such pure heaven-earth spiritual qi water. 2. 3 pieces of translucent lotus leaves floated quietly atop the water's surface. Below it, 2 more buds could be seen, waiting to bloom. Each piece of lotus leaf floating on the water was about the size of a fist. And judging from the thickness of the leaves, they seemed to still have plenty of space for growth before blooming completely. One had to know that in the Heaven Saint Palace, the largest these lotus leaves grew to was merely the size of a thumb. But the ones here had already grown to the size of a fist, and seemed to still have plenty of potential to grow even bigger. If Qiao Ying, the person who had been in charge of taking care of them, could see them now, she would definitely go wild with joy. As for the lotus roots embedded among the bed of loose spirit stones, they'd already become as thick as a person's middle finger. They were at least 4 times larger than their original size. As he examined his handiwork, Jun Mo Xie felt quite satisfied internally as he laughed aloud. Qiao Ying. Ah, Qiao Ying. If you could see these things growing over 10 times faster with this young master's aid, you would probably want to send yourself over to my side too. Haha. Inside the pond, exactly 1 meter apart from each other, were tiny pieces of transparent leaves floating. These were only the size of thumbs. If one counted carefully, they would find exactly 20 stalks. These were naturally the 20 exquisite lotus seeds that Jun Mo Xie had taken from Qiao Ying. With the amazing help of the Hongjun Pagoda, every single one of these 20 seeds had survived, growing well in this pool of spiritual qi. Or perhaps one should say that to the 3 holy lands, the exquisite lotus was an exceedingly precious treasure. But to the Hongjun Pagoda, they were just slightly more valuable seeds. If they survived, so be it. There was nothing to be too amazed about. If they couldn't survive, that would be the strange thing. Jun Mo Xie strolled up and down the side of the pond, clasping his hands behind his back, and smiled in satisfaction like an aged farmer. All of a sudden, Jun Mo Xie had a sudden inspiration. Since I intend to use the power of the 5 elements to help the rainbow holy tree grow faster, perhaps I can try the same with these exquisite lotus? Thinking of that, Jun Mo Xie walked to the most rear exquisite lotus and stretched his hand out, lightly touching the leaf. After that, he roused the long unused power of wood. A green radiance surged out of his body, slowly turning into a huge green halo. Wave after wave, the green radiance pulsed out continuously. Before the first wave disappeared, the next one had appeared. Following that, the green waves passed through his hand and into the little exquisite lotus. All of a sudden, the entire stalk of exquisite lotus began to shake in the water. After that, the thumb-sized lotus leaf actually began to grow at a visible rate, expanding slowly, growing larger and larger. Soon, it was the size of a palm, then double the size of a palm. Not only the leaf, even the roots and stem also grew sturdier and more robust. not as weak as before. At the end, the entire plant was erect and stiff shoots continuously formed, turning into wide lotus leaves. Right before Jun Mo Xie's eyes, a particularly thick stem grew out, and pink buds appeared on its side, slowly blooming. Soon, the entire area was filled with the thick fragrance of the flowers. The lotus bloomed resplendently, but after a time, they slowly wilted, turning into seed pods. The colors of the seed pods grew deeper, and the lotus seed pods under the water also began to grow bigger and thicker. Finally, an area of 3 chi was all completely filled with lotus leaves. And the seed pods under the water had also turned as thick as an infant's arm and as large as a palm. A seed pod of this size was 7 to 10 times larger than the one at the Heaven Saint Palace. Jun Mo Xie looked at this seed pod with amazement, unable to withhold himself from clapping and whooping with joy. It turned out that everything was actually this simple. But suddenly, he realized that something was wrong. Why were these lotus leaves so empty? Water, where's the water? Only now did Jun Mo Xie realize that the entire pond of pure spiritual chi water had actually completely disappeared, only leaving a completely parched pond. Just growing a single stalk of exquisite lotus actually needed so much energy. Jun Mo Xie nearly fainted with shock. So it turned out that these things were so good at burning money. Not having the time to be shocked, Jun Mo Xie hurriedly used the power of the 5 elements, power of water. Heaven, earth, spiritual chi. Hear my commands. Turn into water for me. Jun Mo Xie waved his hand and activated the power of water. A ball of blue light burst out of Jun Mo Xie's body with a hung sound. If these treasures all died because of a lack of water, young Master Jun would truly have nowhere to shed his tears. The thick heaven-earth spiritual chi above Jun Mo Xie's head spiraled into a vortex, turning thicker and thicker with richer colors. Finally, with a gushing sound, a spout of clear water poured down like a waterfall, filling the little pond in a short moment. Without pausing, Jun Mo Xie continued using the power of water, drawing the Hongjun Pagoda's spiritual chi and transforming it into water. Then, he moved to the second budding exquisite lotus and with a loud shout, the power of wood was activated again. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 992. Suspenseful Event. Another flash of green light appeared, along with a flash of blue light. In a short moment, the entire area was filled with multicolored lights as water and mist hung in the air. The scene was utterly dazzling. Amidst the wondrous scenery, the second exquisite lotus grew out with the same ridiculous speed. Water continuously poured down from the sky. All of this formed a beautiful loop. The third stalk, fourth stalk. Jun Mo Xie practically worked in a tireless manner. After absorbing the essence of the 5 elements left behind by the 9 nether first young master in the snow-capped mountains, the power of the 5 elements in his body had reached an exceedingly full state. In this moment, his continuous use of those abilities was completely effortless. When he reached the 13th stalk, Jun Mo Xie suddenly felt a light feeling on his body and he was suddenly booted out from the Hongjun Pagoda back to his room in the outside world. What is going on? Young Master Jun was somewhat annoyed. At this time, the power of water and the power of wood were still emanating from his hands. Although he'd reacted quickly and hurriedly stopped the ability, but in that short instant, the 2 different colored lights had already surged out. An exceedingly strange yet beautiful scene appeared in the night sky. The incomparably clear night sky suddenly poured with rain. At the same time, The plants in Chao Guofeng's yard also began to grow with shocking speed. Tiny stalks of plants instantly grew to the size of a small tree. The patch of grass quickly covered the entire yard. Some parts of the originally solid ground was paved with green stones, but the smooth stone tiles were actually breaking apart, forcefully propped up by the rapidly growing grass under them. In a short time, the entire yard had become as luxurious as an untouched forest. This shocking anomaly had shocked even Jun Mo Xie, let alone others. A saint emperor was cultivating in the garden outside, when he was suddenly drenched like a chicken and subsequently overwhelmed by the rapidly growing plants. Some of these plants grew so fast that they even poked into his nose, and some even poked against his chrysanthemum. The shock from this was not small at all. Rising into the air fiercely, he drew his sword and roared with rage. Which coward is this, to use such sneaky methods? If you have the guts, come out and have a proper fight with this granddaddy. Only after venting his anger did he notice the strange scenery around him. In that moment, he was shocked speechless and ended up falling out of the sky, landing solidly on his B*TT. It was a hard fall, but he actually didn't feel any pain at all. Gasping with shock, he muttered, What is going on? How is this possible? This. The other 4 saint emperors also naturally thought that an enemy had appeared, and they instantly smashed through their windows, bursting out with sharp swords. But when they saw this strange sight, all of them were also stumped like wooden chickens. One of them froze for a moment and with a schwa sound, he shot 20 zhang into the air. After taking a long look, he descended with a confused look on his face as he said aloud, There's no mistake, this is Big Brother Chao's yard. How did it become like this in the blink of an eye? This is like we're in Tian Fa forest. Could it be that we've fallen into the enemy's trap? In just an instant, perhaps several years have already passed. Another saint emperor said hesitantly. Right. Quickly check if the kid is still there. With a loud bang, the wall beside Jun Mo Xie's bed burst apart, and 5 people dashed into the room. Jun Mo Xie seemed to have received a great shock as he poked his head out from under the bedsheets, asking in a startled manner, What's going on? Did something happen? It's nothing. One of the saint emperor said with some embarrassment. Jun Yi, what day is it today, which year and which date? Jun Mo Xie nearly fainted when he heard that. After he gave the answer, the 5 of them had completely mystified expressions as they mumbled something and exited through the door. Jun Yi, why don't you go to another room tonight and sleep? This room is already somewhat destroyed. Another saint emperor said awkwardly. Jun Mo Xie was completely speechless. There was already a frigid gust of night wind blowing merrily through the large hole. It was naturally already destroyed. But at this moment, he also felt quite mystified. Why was I suddenly ejected from the Hongjun Pagoda? I don't seem to recall wanting to exit myself. He naturally did not know that the perverse speed at which he condensed the Hongjun Pagoda's heaven-earth spiritual chi into water caused even this number 1 spiritual treasure of the world to feel a great heartache. This fellow was a typical prodigious kid who didn't know how expensive the rice at home was. This was the purest heaven-earth spiritual chi. Not some rubbish dirty heaven-earth spiritual chi from the outside world. If you were planting something good, then so be it. But to actually use such precious heaven-earth spiritual chi water to grow this kind of rubbish lotus. What is the meaning of this? Although we have plenty of this stuff, it's still too unbearable to see a brat like you wasting it in such a manner. So, just scram for me. Just like that, young Master Jun had been booted out in a fit of anger. Not to mention those saint emperors. Young Master Jun himself was not feeling much better about the situation, and he could only accept the reality like that. This young master was naturally not an idiot. After much thought, he also managed to guess that it should be because he had been using the Hongjun Pagoda's spiritual qi too rapidly, which caused the petty grandpa Hongjun to lose his temper. Besides, the number of exquisite lotus root he'd nurtured in a single shot was seemingly a little too much. Not to mention being enough to feed all the girls at home. It was so much that he could directly chop them up and stir-fry them with pork, and it was even enough to make an exquisite lotus root feast with all kinds of dishes. Hooey. Hooey. That little bastard called me petty. If you really use this granddaddy's spiritual qi to nourish true treasures, this old pagoda can still accept it. But you brat actually used such precious resources to water that trashy plant. Anyone would be angry. And you still dare to call this granddaddy petty? Why don't you just say that you're an ignorant little brat? The Hongjun Pagoda scolded internally. Looks like this fellow also has a bottom line. Young Master Jun mumbled somewhat helplessly as his half-raised middle finger was quickly kept away again. Curse at the Hongjun Pagoda? How would he do that? That fellow was currently residing inside his body. If he wanted to brandish a middle finger at it, he would be doing to himself first. Young Master Jun did not have such weird hobbies. But for now, he temporarily could not enter the Hongjun Pagoda. The yard was filled with the hushed whisperings of the 5 saint emperors. Quite clearly, they were still incredibly bewildered about today's matter. These old fellows completely could not understand. It wasn't that their knowledge was lacking, but that his kind of matter was simply too strange. Any normal person would not be able to make heads or tails of it. How could a proper and neat courtyard turn into a forest? Especially the dumbstruck Saint Emperor who had been cultivating in the yard and had witnessed the entire terrifying scene completely. His recounted the entire story animatedly. You guys didn't see it, but I was cultivating just now and was at a critical point of condensing my chi when a huge downpour of rain suddenly fell from the cloudless sky out of nowhere, completely drenching me. This old man nearly suffered cultivation deviation from the sheer shock. Following that, just as I was trying to stabilize my essence chi, a stalk of grass suddenly shot into my nostrils. And even more ridiculous, the tender bamboo shoots that old Chow had planted on the ground actually grew so quickly that it managed to tunnel into this daddy's vital area, with a schwa sound. It pushed all the way in, not too thick, not too thin, cold and leafy. It almost claimed this daddy's old life. Ha ha ha. All the other saint emperors roared with laughter, slapping their thighs with great amusement. This kind of embarrassing matter, if not for them being close brothers, they would never utter such words. Even young Master Jun, who was in the room, could not help but fall over in laughter when he heard that detailed account. No wonder that old fellow had been so enraged just now. So it turned out that his chrysanthemum had been busted by a stalk of bamboo. That was a little too unfortunate. The old man scowled unhappily. You all can still laugh. Feck. If this old man had not jumped up quick enough, you guys will only find this old man with a stalk of bamboo growing out of my mouth now. Old 7th. What did it feel like? Was it pleasurable? The 4th elder laughed exaggeratedly. You old thing refused to get a wife for so many years, but now, your virginity was actually broken by a bamboo. The 4 saint emperors roared with laughter again, clutching their stomachs as tears flowed from their eyes. After a long time, they all fell silent again. After having laughed their fill, they finally began to properly think about the matter. Even a saint emperor had not been able to detect the anomaly, suffering a loss at close range. If this had been an enemy instead, the results were easily imagined. But despite wrecking their brains, They could not come up with anything. Jun Mo Xie looked at the huge hole in his room and sighed in a heartfelt manner. The structure of this house was truly good. After being smashed through like this, it actually hadn't collapsed yet. It was definitely impossible to sleep anymore. In that moment, he could only pull on his clothes and look at the 5 old men troubling over the matter outside. A long while passed. Look! What is that? The 5th elder seemed to have discovered something as he stood before a plant and held a black seed between his fingers. Stroking his beard, he said, "Everyone, what happened here was definitely an anomaly. Look, isn't this stalk of scarlet jade ginseng something that eldest brother brought over 10 years ago? At that time, it was at most only around 20 years old. But now, it had actually already bloomed. And there are even so many seeds on the ground. What does this prove?" The other 4 saint emperors rushed over and their sights fell on the black-colored seed. In that moment, all of them were staring at the sight before them with disbelief. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 993. Miracle. The scarlet jade ginseng was a mutant variant ginseng. They were exceedingly rare, and would typically need over 100 years of careful nurturing to reach full maturity. Before they reached full maturity, they cannot be consumed. But because it needed so much time to reach full maturity, they were excellent spirit herbs when matured. After Chao Guofeng moved it to his own yard, he'd only taken it as a leisurely activity to tend to it every so often. After all, with the long life of saint emperors, he would be able to enjoy the ginseng sooner or later. But still, he didn't place too much importance on it for the time being. After all, it was only around 10 years old right now. There were still at least 70, 80 years remaining until it would be worth something. But who would have thought that this ginseng would actually directly step past over 80 years of growing, directly reaching full maturity in the mere blink of an eye? When they saw this, the 5 of them directly froze like stone statues. Quick, dig it out and take a look. Is it really mature?" The 3rd elder said agitatedly as his eyes shone. The scarlet jade ginseng could not really be considered any amazing treasure in the eyes of these saint emperors. But a fully matured scarlet jade ginseng was still rather rare. If it was really mature, it would be a nice freebie. The 7th elder stooped down and carefully dug through the ground. Even as a saint emperor expert, he was still exceedingly careful. The scarlet jade ginseng was rather unique in that as long as even a single root was hurt when digging, all the spiritual qi in it would completely disappear. This was also the reason why the scarlet jade ginseng was viewed so preciously despite its growth conditions. A while later, the scarlet jade ginseng was finally dug up completely. An additional deep hole was left on the ground. After carefully dusting off the dirt around it, a red glow could be seen, with a near-translucent ginseng. All 5 saint emperors were promptly stunned. It was actually real. This was a scarlet jade ginseng that could not be more ripe. Furthermore, this was definitely the highest grade of scarlet jade ginseng. Overjoyed with this discovery, the 5 brothers immediately spread out and started digging. Waha! Look at this stalk of green jing. It's actually also reached full maturity. The violet zoysia here is actually also fully grown. The 5 old men suddenly turned into common foragers as they searched through this treasure ground excitedly. How big could a mere courtyard be? Saint Emperor Chao himself was not a herb expert, and there was only a limited number of spirit herbs planted. The 5 quickly concluded their search in a short time. Looking at the desolate scene before them, The 5 Saint Emperors clucked their tongues with some pity. They were naturally not feeling regretful about the mess they've created. With their status, even if they trashed another 100 courtyards, they would still not feel anything. In at most one day, the courtyard could be easily restored to its former beauty. The thing they were truly regretful over was, if we knew it was like this, we should have planted this courtyard full of spirit herbs. A miracle like this would only happen once in how long? To think that such a miraculous anomaly only ended up mainly nourishing those useless weeds and bamboos. What a waste. It was simply a waste of heavenly resources. The 5 all sighed as they looked at the sea of bamboo before them with hatred. In this moment, they only wished to chop these annoying plants down and boil them into soup. A perfectly fine courtyard had actually turned into a bamboo forest. Even the clean and quiet little houses were all covered with weeds now, and some bamboo had even grown through the ground, breaking past the stone floors. They had checked very carefully. Apart from this yard, there was no anomaly with the plants outside of this yard. From the looks of it, this miracle had only happened to this yard. So it's the heavens giving us more care, the 7th elder said with a deep sigh. As he rubbed his B***talks, he did not feel that bad anymore. After all, who else in this world could say that their chrysanthemum had been busted by divine providence? This old man could be said to be the first in the world. This event could even be written into the annals of history. When he thought of it this way, the 7th elder felt that his B***TT had been honored. As dawn approached, Chao Guofeng and Bai Chi Feng finally returned lethargically. The moment they stepped through the door, the both of them froze slightly and instantly turned back around. They should have entered the wrong door. Bai Chi Feng grumbled softly. Boss, you called me a muddlehead all day long, but look at you. You can't even find your own house. The two stepped back and looked for a long time. Finally, they turned and walked back through the gate in a confused manner. They looked at the entire yard full of tall grass and verdant bamboos, as well as the thick layer of vines creeping along the walls. Chao Guofeng was so shocked that he couldn't say anything. The yard was also filled with huge holes all over the ground. As for the room that Jun Mo Xie had been staying in, it had already been turned into a breezy open pavilion. Saint Emperor Chao blinked his eyes in disbelief, and he felt like a strangled goose with its throat tightly gripped in someone's fist. After stammering and choking for a long time, he finally roared, What happened here?" The scene before him would be shocking to anyone. It was a good thing that he'd noticed the plants first. If he saw the large holes and the destroyed house first, Saint Emperor Chao would definitely think that something had happened to young Master Jun. The moment they heard the two come back, the other 5 Saint Emperors hurriedly ran out from their rooms. The 5 of them all spoke together, describing all kinds of wondrous magic, causing Chao Guofeng and Bai Chi Feng to nearly faint from the confusion. After a long time, the two of them finally figured out the situation from their jumbled words, realizing that a miracle had happened in this yard last night. "I'm not in the mood to care about whatever magic and miracles. Where is that kid? How is he? Has he calmed down yet?" Bai Chi Feng was obviously not interested in the miracle at all. He only cared about the treasured disciple that they'd snatched back after such great danger. With the assassination attempt just a few hours ago, his mood was naturally not good. He's fine," the 5 hurriedly answered. Only when they heard that he was fine, the two of them finally relaxed. Now, they could look at the messy scene before them and the precious herbs in the 5 brothers' hands. There were actually over a dozen of them, and each one could be considered precious natural treasures. "I say, boss, this matter seems quite queer to me," Bai Chi Feng stroked his chin and revealed a deep ponderous expression. That miracle didn't come earlier or later, only arriving after Jun Yi came here. Perhaps, this disciple of ours is someone sent from the deities. What do you mean? Everyone asked together. It's extraordinary, Bai Chi Feng said, raising his head arrogantly. This was a slang that he'd learnt from Jun Mo Xie a couple days ago. To think he could apply it so quickly. It was indeed extraordinary. Everyone also nodded with realization. Although Bai Chi Feng's words sounded rather uncouth, this was an undeniable fact. Chao Guofeng had already stayed in this yard for several hundred years. But not to mention a miracle, not even the slightest strange matter had happened before. But today's matter was obviously not something that could be explained away with logic. In that instant, the 7 Saint Emperors had become more sure that this free and natural physique prodigy Mo Jun Yi was definitely going to be a huge figure in the future. Throughout history and legends, every time an important figure was born, strange sights and anomalies would always accompany them. From the looks of it, this was a reminder from the heavens' awe. Or perhaps, it's a warning from the gods that nothing must be allowed to happen to this child. In just an instant, the look in everyone's eyes changed. The entire misty illusory manor was thoroughly stirred up the previous night. The prodigy with the free and natural physique had met with an assassination attempt at the mountain right in front of the manor, barely avoiding death. And the assassins were actually the 6 personal guards of the Zhan family young masters who had only a few hours ago been defeated miserably by Mo Jun Yi. This matter naturally attracted the attention of all the important characters. The second matter also involved the same Mo Jun Yi with the free and natural physique. On the same night that he'd escaped the assassination attempt, a shocking miracle had appeared in the yard he was staying at. In the span of a single night, all the plants in the yard suddenly all grew madly, reaching full maturity of several hundred years. These 2 matters sent a huge tremor through the entire misty illusory manor. At the crack of dawn, Manor Lord Miao Jingyun sent an order, summoning the patriarchs of all the 8 great families to the manor. At the same time, among the list of invited people, was Saint Emperor Chao Guofeng. This time, the Zhan family will definitely not be able to get away lightly. This daddy has disliked those bunch of Zhan family bastards for a long time already. Bai Chi Feng said with a slight sneer as he sat in Chao Guofeng's little yard. His expression was casual and at ease, as if he were in his own house. In fact, he'd even pulled his mattress and blankets over, seemingly intending to perch a nest here and settle down. Saint Emperor Bai's speech was much more restrained this time. His trademark, "this daddy," was practically gone. After all, his precious disciple was beside him. If he ended up leading him astray, it wouldn't be good. Truthfully, this was also one of Chao Guofeng's conditions for letting him stay here. If he refused to conform, he could only scram. In order to be able to stay close with his precious disciple, he could only comply. A stone table was set in the middle of the yard, which they sat around. A bowl of spirit fruits only produced in the misty illusory manor was placed in the middle. 6 of the Saint Emperors together with Jun Mo Xie was seated around it, happily eating their breakfast. The scene was calm, and the sound of bamboo and leaves swaying lightly in the breeze could be heard. Not necessarily so, Jun Mo Xie said with a faint smile. Although the assassins from last night have been determined to be from the Zhan family, it remains a fact that none of the Zhan family disciples were present. And with just that not present point, the Zhan family can do many things. With their foundations, they probably won't suffer any real loss. At the most, They would only get some light punishment and with the promise to be more strict with their watch over their servants. And this matter would be over. Oh. Really? Bai Chi Feng looked at young Master Jun with an interested gaze. Kid, you've hidden yourself quite well. In that case, the only way to pin the crime on the Zhan family for last night's matter is if we caught Zhan Qingfeng and Zhan Yushu red-handed at the scene of the crime? Even like that, it might not work. Jun Mo Xie said faintly. As long as the Zhan family acted quickly enough on their side. Announcing that this matter was the personal actions of those two unfilial juniors and promptly expelled them from the family, or even executed the two of them on the spot, the Zhan family would still not have their core harmed at all. Wishing to topple the Zhan family just with this matter alone is basically impossible. After all, the Zhan family is the current #1 family of the misty illusory manor. Their foundations are incomparably deep and sturdy to shocking extent. It's truly difficult to want to shake them. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 994. Gathering of Big Shots. Although Bai Chi Feng and the other Saint Emperor's cultivation were high, they were simply loners who trained and adventured by themselves. Although such an unfettered state meant that their cultivation improved very rapidly, they would never understand how large families and sects worked. That was a kind of politics. In essence, the misty illusory manor was simply a very large and unique country. When it came to politics, unless they were charged with treason and rebellion, it was impossible for the ruling government to eradicate a large family like the Zhan family, which had close to 10,000 years of foundation. Even if the misty illusory manor's manor lord wanted to, it would not necessarily be possible to wipe the Zhan family away. Because if such a large power was suddenly removed, the power balance between all the large factions would be thrown off. And as a result, the entire misty illusory manor would need a very long time to recover. In fact, it wouldn't be impossible for the ruling power to change hands. These matters were only things that people involved in the politics of it would consider. In contrast, these things were a little too complicated for Bai Chi Feng and the other Saint Emperors, and it was completely within reason for them to not understand. Breakfast was finished soon, and at around 3 in the afternoon, Saint Emperor Chao Guofeng returned with a black face. With a single look, it was obvious that things had not gone as well as anticipated. Those bastards of the Zhan family. How infuriating. They're despicable to the extreme. To think that they actually pushed all the responsibilities to those guards. They claimed that those few guards had been unhappy with the Zhan family, and their families had been suppressed because of some matter. As a result, they wanted to kill Mo Jun Xie so as to frame the Zhan family. What a nice tale. According to their words, the Zhan family suddenly became completely innocent and was even the victim. Who would believe such words? Chao Guofeng scolded angrily as his beard stood on their ends. Confusing right and wrong. Invert black and white. Refer to the deer as a horse, to think that the whole family can achieve such a shameless realm. This is truly an eye-opening experience for this old man. No wonder they can become the #1 aristocratic family of the misty illusory manor. Fecking bullshit. Bai Chi Feng also exploded with rage. If those guards were really so rebellious, would they dare place 2 of their most important disciples in their care? The 6 of them are all venerable level experts. All of them are disobedient. Who the feck can believe this kind of nonsense? Are they taking us for 3-year-olds to be fooled? But that was exactly how they spun it. They simply confessed to family laws being too lax, causing such a serious incident. In response, The manor lord simply berated Zhan Wuyun, telling him to return and punish all the disobedient subordinates, strengthening the family's disciplinary procedures. Finally, the matter was settled like that. Chao Guofeng said with some confusion and unhappiness as he slapped his thigh ruthlessly. Bai Chi Feng was even more furious, directly standing up. I'll go and look for Manor Lord immediately to convince him. We can't simply let this matter end just like that. If he doesn't give us a satisfactory explanation, this dad, I will just go and barge my way into the Zhan family. If we're no match for them in schemes, can't we at least beat them up? Calm down. If you behave so rashly, even if we're in the right, we will become the ones in the wrong. Actually, the Manor Lord has also made some compensations for us. Mo Jun Xie will be allowed to enter the library twice every month to study. Besides that, the Manor Lord directly granted Jun Xie's entry to the spiritual herbal gardens without the Zhan family needing to make the request. In addition, the 7 of us are allowed to go in together with him. Also, the Zhan family was commanded to take out a good weapon for Jun Xie, as compensation for the scare he received. Chao Guofeng's smile grew wider and wider as he spoke. Those are already things that the disciple with the free and natural physique is supposed to have. What kind of compensation is that? The only positive thing is that the 7 of us old fellows are allowed into the spiritual herbal gardens as well. But this daddy would rather not go. What's so good about going into that broken place? To actually treat it as some kind of grand treasure. What a joke. Those Zhan family bastards are despicable. But the Manor Lord is not any better. How truly disheartening. Bai Chi Feng spat with rage. Just be contented. It's not easy for the Manor Lord as well. Honestly, the most unfortunate ones in this incident are not us. At least, our Mo Jun Xie still received a few compensations. In contrast, the Manor Lord is much more depressed than us. Chao Guofeng sighed. We've all heard it from MP Jun Xie too. Last night, Mo Jun Xie was not the only one who had almost died. That old Miao's precious jewel of a daughter also received a scare no less than our Mo Jun Xie. However, she wasn't even mentioned at all. Not easy, my ass. Will he still treat his own granddaughter with ill? Bai Chi Feng's eyes grew wide as he slammed the table. Big brother. Is there a problem with your brains? You simply believe whatever the Manor Lord tells you? Who knows? Perhaps many of the benefits that originally belonged to Jun Xie had already been taken away for his own granddaughter. There is no knowing what is in a man's heart. You. Nonsense. Hurry up and shut your mouth for me. Chao Guofeng roared with rage. Do you even know what you're saying? How can the Manor Lord be this kind of person? Besides, wasn't it our rascal who seduced the other's daughter first, causing Manor Lord to be so helpless? Right now, the Miao family's side is in utter chaos. Where would they have the strength to seek compensation from the Zhan family? Seduced their daughter? That Miao Xiao Miao? The #1 beauty of the misty illusory Manor's younger generation? Bai Chi Feng's eyes grew wider and wider. Seeing Chao Guofeng nod with a black face, Bai Chi Feng was stunned for a long time before he suddenly roared with laughter, slapping a huge palm on Jun Mo Xie's shoulder. Good lad. Well done. You've only come here for how many days? To think that you actually managed to subdue the Manor Lord's granddaughter so swiftly. This kind of speed, as expected of the free and natural physique. Jun Mo Xie's face was filled with black lines as he scowled. What does this kind of thing have to do with the free and natural physique? Besides, what did I even do? I didn't even try to flirt with her at all. Besides, Was it me who subdued her? It was clearly her who forced herself upon me. You think I'm willing? Who can I even confide my grievance in? Enough. Enough. The few of you. Quickly go and get ready. The Manor Lord has also heard from the various patriarchs about the miracle appearing here and insisted on coming personally to take a look. He should be here at any moment. Chao Guofeng instructed hurriedly. Honestly, there wasn't much to get ready. Apart from the greenery that had been left behind on purpose. The other stuff had already been flattened by them long ago. The only thing was that the effects of the power of wood had not dissipated completely yet. From time to time, a stalk of bamboo would burst out from the ground with a swoosh sound. If someone was unlucky enough to be sitting just above it at that time, things would become quite lively. As expected, a short while later, a group of old fellows arrived with great clamor, their white robes fluttering in the wind. The Miao family, Zhan family, Li family, Gu family, Meng family, Chiu family, Yun family, Zhang family, the patriarchs of the misty illusory manors, 8 great families along with Manor Lord Miao Jingyun, arrived for a total of 9 people. In addition to the 7 Saint Emperors, the small yard was fully packed. Although Miao Jingyun was from the Miao family, he held the status of the Manor Lord and could not assume the position of the Miao family's patriarch. He could not even stay with the Miao family, and the patriarch of the Miao family was assumed by another person. When they saw the scarlet jade ginseng and other precious herbs that the Saint Emperors took out, all of them gasped with wonder and shock. All of them were well-educated people. If there were any falsehoods, it naturally would be unable to escape their eyes. Moreover, this heavenly treasures that Saint Emperor Chao and the rest had taken out was all good stuff that couldn't be obtained easily. Upon closer study of the area, it was even easier to determine the truth. When they saw the verdant and lively greenery, many of these old fellows revealed envious looks in their eyes. This kind of natural purity was definitely not something that could be emulated with man-made planting. These 9 old fellows were all old friends that frequented each other's place from time to time. They were not unfamiliar with this little yard of Chao Guofeng's at all. Previously, some of them still thought that Chao Guofeng was simply exaggerating, purposely conjuring some nonsense about a miracle to draw more attention to that disciple of his. But when they saw it with their own eyes, they immediately believed his words. There was no need for further explanation. No one in the world could turn a little bamboo grove into a flourishing bamboo forest in the span of a single night. Just this point alone was enough to win the trust of the crowd. Not to mention, there were also those freshly harvested heavenly treasures. The evidence was not limited to this. The vines that surrounded the wall had overlapped several layers overnight, while the innermost layers have already dried up. If one counted them carefully, there were at least over 100 layers. 100 years passing in a single night, that was fearfully the most conservative view. Chao Guofeng's original courtyard walls were smooth, not allowing any of these things to exist. After all, they were too unsightly. All the facts were clear to see. The night before, this place had indeed received some divine blessing. After arriving at this conclusion, the faces of the 3 old fellows turned incredibly complicated. A keen light shone in one of these old man's eyes. This old man was somewhat skinny-looking, yet had a cold and detached aura. When he looked at Jun Mo Xie, there was a faint conflicting expression. This person was the Zhan family's patriarch, Zhan Wuyun. The other person that was looking at him with a complicated look was the Gu family's patriarch, Gu Yunyang, and also the grandfather of Gu Feiyu whom he'd crippled. He could be said to have had a fated meeting with young Master Jun before, although that meeting could not be said to be cordial. The last one was an old man with jet black hair flowing behind his head. His features were sharp and elegant, and his face was ruddy. Just by standing there, he emanated a fearsome aura, as if the sun, moon, rivers, and mountains were all beneath his feet, while all of creation laid in his hands. This kind of aura was something that only peak experts who held great power for a long time, holding authority over the life and death of countless people, could possess. This person was naturally the current Misty Illusory Manor's Manor Lord. And also Miao Xiao Miao's grandfather, Miao Jingyun. At this time, Miao Jingyun's eyes were exceedingly complicated as he looked at this free and natural physique kid. He actually couldn't figure out what kind of feelings he had in his heart. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 995. Expounding on Miracles. Miao Jingyun and young Master Jun had also met once by fate. Back when Jun Mo Xie first entered the Misty Illusory Manor, it was Miao Jingyun who made the decision and fed him a set of 7 colored holy fruits. The last fruit was also personally fed to him by this old fellow. Today, it was actually their second time meeting each other. Miao Jingyun's heart was also quite conflicted. It was exactly because of this brat with the extraordinary free and natural physique. The moment he came, he'd caused such a great commotion. Just by going out for a little walk, he'd crippled an elite successor of the Gu family and even caused the Zhan family to fall into a dire situation, only barely managing to clean the matter up. Just these 2 matters had plunged the entire Misty Illusory Manor into chaos. Although these 2 matters were not started by him, it could be said to have happened because of him. The source of the problems lay with him. The matter had not settled down even now, and it appeared that on that very same day of the incident, he'd also stolen away the heart of his granddaughter. This was simply a devil that was naturally talented at drawing trouble. Could a normal person do all that? A normal person could naturally not achieve all that. But this prodigy with the free and natural physique had actually done it. So this evaluation of Jinx still underestimated him. This kid was simply a root of trouble. Right now, on the surface, only the Zhan family and the Gu family were involved in this. But if the matter with his own granddaughter were spread out, that would mean that this kid would become the common target of all of the Misty Illusory Manor's young generation. It was common knowledge that of the 8 great families of the Misty Illusory Manor, there were at least be a few promising youths from each family that were interested in his granddaughter. This kid had only come here for 5-6 days, and he'd already snatched away the target that everyone had pursued for a long time. How could he avoid the jealousy and envy of everyone? Miao Jingyun sighed heavily in his heart as he looked at him, only to see this fellow grinning back at him with a bashful expression, as if he were completely oblivious to the troubles he'd caused. When the kid saw him looking at him, he even smiled widely, revealing all his teeth. Do you think that your teeth are very white? Miao Jingyun felt an anger surge through his heart. What is he smiling so proudly about? Don't you know that this daddy is having a massive headache because of you? If you really have the capabilities, with extraordinarily exceptional leadership skills, and the cultivation of the saint level, that would be fine. But with that tiny bit of cultivation, any random disciple of the aristocratic families could simply squish you to death with a single finger. To think that a rascal like you were actually able to cause Xiao Miao to fall so madly in love, refusing to marry anyone else. Just what did Xiao Miao see in him? Just as the crowd was standing there looking at each other awkwardly, Miao Jingyun unexpectedly waved his hand, beckoned for Jun Mo Xie. Mo Jun Yi, come here. Jun Mo Xie groaned internally. Is this old fellow going to settle the scores with me? But I really didn't do anything to your granddaughter, ah. In fact, the one who had been taken advantage of was me. But young Master Jun did not say this out loud. Even if he did, would anyone believe him? As the person involved in last night's matter, what do you think? Unexpectedly, Miao Jingyun's first question was actually this. To anyone else, this was naturally an easy question. This was simply a miracle from the heavens. What other opinion could there be? But when it came to this free and natural physique prodigy, this question wasn't that simple. Right now, everybody had already unanimously agreed that this miracle had appeared because there was the owner of the free and natural physique staying here. But while the rest could say that, Jun Mo Xie himself could not. It was only natural for others to deify him, but if he praised himself like that, it would be another matter entirely. But if he didn't reply like that, how else was he supposed to reply? This was a little too difficult to handle. Replying to Manor Lord. Last night, I was really only talking to Miss Miao. We really didn't do anything. If you don't believe me, you can go back and ask. That last little beansprout can be my witness. The guilty Jun Mo Xie answered immediately without thinking. But quite clearly, this fellow had completely misunderstood the question, directly giving a different answer. The moment this sentence came out, everyone's faces started to twitch strangely. Only talking to her, and didn't do anything? What else were you thinking of doing? No matter how wise, experienced, or sly Miao Jingyun was, he could not have expected to hear such a ridiculous answer. After hearing this, his nose nearly turned crooked from anger. When young Master Jun saw this expression, he finally managed to confirm one thing in his heart. So it turned out that the phrase, nose turning crooked with anger, was actually true. He used to think it was an exceptionally exaggerated descriptive phrase. It was definitely impossible for a person's nose to turn crooked from anger alone. But looking at the appearance of this Manor Lord now, it had directly proven this point. So it was indeed true that a person's nose could turn crooked from anger. I wasn't asking about this. Miao Jingyun's stern face had become as black as the bottom of a wok. This brat. To think that he wanted to cover the matter for him. But to think that not only did he not appreciate it, he'd even directly confessed to the whole thing. At first, he still thought that this kid still had some brains. But from the looks of it now, this was clearly a dumb wooden bird. Then what are you asking about? Jun Mo Xie froze slightly. Knowing that he'd confessed wrongly, he hurriedly tried to cover the matter up. Right. The matter last night was truly very precarious. It's all my fault for offending too many people, nearly implicating Miss Miao. It's all my fault. Everyone was stunned speechless once again. Just what was this fellow talking about this time? Only when they listened further did they realize that he was talking about the matter last night. Last night, 6 masked men suddenly appeared before me, blocking the path. All of them were powerful experts. And they said that I'd offended someone whom I couldn't afford to offend. And they were here to claim my life. I was completely at a loss of what to do. I'd only arrived here for a few days. And the number of people I know can be counted on my fingers. However, they wouldn't let me explain and wanted to directly kill me. That was truly a precarious situation, Even I thought that we were going to meet with tragedy this time. But just at the critical moment, suddenly, Jun Mo Xie recounted with lingering fear. Stop. Miao Jingyun hurriedly stopped him. This old man was also not asking about this matter. The Zhan family still did not know that there was another mysterious expert in the misty illusory manner. This old man does not intend to reveal it at all, to think that you almost leaked all of it out. But after having his question misinterpreted twice like this old man's image had been greatly tarnished. This brat was truly too terrible. I was asking, what you think about last night's miracle? Miao Jingyun directly said this time. Who knew what other nonsense this kid would spout if he continued playing elusive? Miracle? Oh, so you were talking about that. Jun Mo Xie nodded with realization. Why didn't you say it earlier? Why did you make it so complicated, causing this daddy to misunderstand? I thought that you were here to demand an explanation for your granddaughter. Truthfully, Jun Mo Xie could not be blamed for thinking like this. Because this matter had all been caused by him. In young Master Jun's eyes, this matter was not even worth a mention at all. This daddy is already preparing to use this miracle on your rainbow holy tree. What is a few stalks of bamboo worth compared to it? Thus, Jun Mo Xie hadn't thought in this direction at all, resulting in this awkward situation. In addition, the moment he saw Miao Jingyun, he suddenly had a guilty conscience, immediately linking it to Miao Xiao Miao. He had immediately confirmed that this old fellow must have come to look for him because of his granddaughter. And perhaps, he might even turn forceful, dragging him away to marry his granddaughter. If not this, what other matter can it be? Miao Jingyun forcefully suppressed the rage in his heart, trying his best to maintain the prestige and bearings of the misty illusory manor lord. However, he was already at his limits and would begin emitting steam from all his 7 orifices at any time. Actually, from the way I see it, yesterday's matter was just a coincidence. Jun Mo Xie heaved a sigh of relief in his heart as he began in a relaxed manner. Ever since the dawn of Xian continent, the number of miracles that have appeared in this land can be said to be innumerable. There are countless legends and myths spreading all over the world. And there are even some who say that the Pillar of Heaven's mountains where the war for seizing the heavens are held is something created by the power of the gods. And among the commoners, there are also many amazing stories of deities descending to the human world from the heavens. Even in the current age, many people still have images and statues of gods and idols in their homes which they pray to and worship, seeking protection and prosperity for their families, bountiful harvests, favorable weather, and the peace of the country. In Tianxiang, there's a story that a god. Even in the vast prairie, the people there worship the wolf god. As for the miracles there are a total of. Even in the palace, many people believed in sacrificing to the gods and receiving miracles. There are also quite a few strange occurrences recorded in palaces. For example, even the current emperors and kings. Take for instance, these 16 old fellows were all completely dumbfounded, with their mouths hanging wide open. Today had truly been a huge eye-opening experience for them. They could only watch on, speechless, as Jun Mo Xie prattled on, drawing examples from the start of time to present day, from Tianxiang to the prairie, from the continent to the strange races, from commoners to kings and emperors. Truly too fecking erudite and informed, extremely well versed in both ancient and modern learning. Too fecking knowledgeable. But, do you think the few of us came all the way here today to hear you talk about the history of legends and miracles? The 16 old fogies, including Chao Guofeng and the rest, simply wished that they could catch this wretched fellow and give him a good beating. Why is this kid's mouth so terrifying? So based on all these examples, this miracle thing After speaking for so long, Jun Mo Xie finally arrived at the main point. All the old men sat up and perked their ears. Looks like this kid finally couldn't drag it out any longer. I'll like to see how he explains last night's matter. In that moment, they all expectantly especially Zhan Wuyun and Gu Yunyang. The two of them looked like they were waiting to watch a good show. Is actually very ephemeral and difficult to grasp. There's no way to determine or predict it. If you want my opinion, truthfully, I'm not really sure what's going on as well. That's all I have to say. If there's anything I'm lacking. Jun Mo Xie said with a very humble smile. Please guide me. All the old fellows nearly fainted together. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 996. Shock to the face. To think that us old bunch of bones had been standing under the hot sun for close to 2 hours, listening to you spouting rubbish that could not be more nonsensical. Can you be more shameless? Truly preposterous. To actually dare to answer the Manor Lord like that. Truthfully, Jun Mo Xie was also exceedingly helpless. That old fellow's question had obviously been asked to make things difficult for this young master. If I said that the miracle had something to do with me, that would simply mean that I'm being too arrogant, don't know humility, self-praising, and shameless. In the future, even if I had some achievements, it would be very limited. But if I said that it had nothing to do with me, it would mean that I do not have a shred of self-confidence and will not have many achievements in the future either. Cultivation was something that was focused on pursuing the peak. How could one not have any self-confidence? Jun Mo Xie could already guess that if he answered in the normal way, it would immediately draw a round of criticism and attacks. Because this was basically a trap. It wouldn't be correct no matter what he answered. Just from that sneaky look in that meow old fellow's eyes, he could already determine this result. With this young master's intellect, how could he fall for such an obvious trap? Therefore, young Master Jun started talking about the history and legends, confusing their minds and before finally concluding with the answer. Miracles were something that could not be explained. And, if you say that it can be explained, you can try to explain it on the spot. This young master will not be involved in this. Everybody could conclude that Miao Jingyun would definitely fly into a rage this time. Even Chao Guofeng, Bai Chi Feng, and the rest were sweating for him. This kid is truly too gutsy. Although this question is indeed somewhat difficult to answer for you, but, to toy with the Manor Lord like this, was a little too risky. If this old Miao got angry and made some arrangements, your bright future in the misty illusionary manor might end here. Surprisingly, after Miao Jingyun heard his reply, his face sunk for a moment and he suddenly smiled. Good brat, you're indeed born with a sharp tongue. I've got to hand it to you. With a loud laugh, the matter was actually over. This result caused all the others to be so shocked that they almost fell down. Following that, the crowd began to chat leisurely. After exchanging a few more words politely with the other seniors, Jun Mo Xie cleverly retreated back to his room, not participating in the meeting of these few old fellows. But when he left, he could clearly sense 9 spiritual senses locked closely on his body, following behind him closely, observing his every word and action, even his faintest expressions and the movements of his muscles. Because only incredibly minute body language could determine his true reactions. Jun Mo Xie did not have any interest to bother with them as he scoffed coldly in his heart. Those methods of yours are truly too boring for this young master. Since all of you are so concerned about me, I'll give you another surprise. His face calm and steady, he directly sat down, shut his eyes, and began to cultivate seriously. The few patriarchs looked at each other, their eyes filled with amazement and praise. After a meeting with the misty illusory Manor's Manor Lord and so many big characters, Which youth could maintain a calm state of mind and concentrate on cultivation? That was basically an impossibility. But this free and natural physique prodigy actually seemed to be completely unaffected. Directly returning to his room and cultivating with a steadfast mind, just this extraordinary state of mind had far surpassed all the other of his highly talented peers. As expected of the free and natural physique prodigy, just this calmness and steady heart is remarkable. Chao Guofeng and the rest beamed happily, feeling that they'd greatly gained face. When a disciple did well, the happiest were naturally the teachers. A faint smile of interest appeared on the corner of Miao Jingyun's mouth as he looked deeply at Jun Mo Xie several times. However, he couldn't see through what this kid was thinking. The crowd simply sat around in the middle of this bamboo forest, chatting leisurely. No one seemed as if they had any intentions of leaving. Quite clearly, these people were planning to stay here for lunch. This was a place that had experienced a miracle. That was naturally a cause for celebration. Chao Guofeng had already made preparations for this in advance, waving his hand and informing the servants to prepare. Just at this time, a silver light suddenly flashed, and following that, a dazzling golden light. And the direction from which the golden light had come from was young Master Jun's room. Chao Guofeng and Bai Chi Feng's faces changed, and they quickly charged over in a flash. Everyone also followed over with confusion. When they came closer and observed the phenomenon, all of them revealed looks of disbelief. Half of this free and natural physique prodigy's body was glowing with silver light, while the other half was shimmering with gold. This was a sight that would only appear when one broke through the silver Xian realm to golden Xian. Chao Guofeng wrung his hands anxiously. Why did he break through now? This, we made no preparations at all. Saint Emperor Chao's face was painted with worry and anxiousness, while the other 6 Saint Emperors also paced around restlessly. The other patriarchs were even more shocked. It turned out that this breakthrough was something that even Saint Emperor Chao wasn't informed of. In other words, this was a natural breakthrough. In a short instant, everyone's expressions changed. One had to know that when Mo Junyi first arrived, his cultivation was weak, at just the middle stage of Silver Xian. There were still 2 levels between him and Golden Xian, being the Silver Xian upper realm and peak Silver Xian. Even after reaching the peak of Silver Xian, one still needed the proper comprehension and the right opportunity to break through. But who would have thought that in just a short 5-6 days, this kid would actually manage to break through all the way to Golden Xian in a single stroke? This kind of advancement speed was truly never seen before. Although he'd eaten the 7 colored holy fruits a few days ago, but without pairing it with the exquisite lotus, the 7 colored holy fruits would only have the effect of nourishing the body and meridians, not having any effects towards increasing cultivation strength. Moreover, he had been carrying grievous wounds when he first arrived and was only saved by the 7 colored holy fruits, still requiring a period of recuperation. Who would have thought that in just 5-6 days, he would actually be able to break through to the next realm? A few days ago, he was still struggling on the verge of death, fighting for a breath of life. And in such a short time, he could already soar to the next level? Such a shocking matter had far exceeded the understanding of everyone present. Everyone was completely speechless. The people present here were all powerful experts that had reached the Saint Emperor realm. There were even a number who were patriarchs of large families. To climb to their current level, which one of them was not a genius among geniuses? But no matter what kind of heaven-defying genius they were, they had never heard of such terrifying speed before. How shocking! You guys haven't fed him anything strange in these few days, right? Miao Jingyun narrowed his eyes and looked at Chao Guofeng. Nope. He hadn't eaten anything that has too much spirit energy. As he's still recovering from his previous heavy injuries, receiving too much nourishment with a weak body would instead result in opposite effects. This is still a concept that we can understand. Chao Guofeng shook his head, his expression still one of anxiousness. Right now, the kid was still in the middle of a breakthrough, and he could only depend on himself. It was no wonder that Saint Emperor Chao was so worried. If it was before his breakthrough or after, he could lend him a helping hand. But in this instant, it was impossible. Didn't eat anything. Miao Jingyun muttered as he nodded slowly. Under the astonished gaze of everyone, the silver light on Jun Mo Xie's body slowly turned golden and with a bright flash, everything disappeared into his body. This was a phenomenon that would only appear upon a complete breakthrough. The sound of jaws dropping onto the ground could be heard everywhere. Without the guidance of a teacher, without first accumulating enough energy, without any sort of preparations, and seemingly without any supporting spirit herbs or heavenly treasures, this kid had, in such strange circumstances and completely unexpected time, broke through by himself. Broken through so mysteriously. And it was the most perfect and complete breakthrough. All the other patriarchs turned to stare wide-eyed at Chao Guofeng, Bai Chi Feng, and the others. Their eyes were filled with unconcealed admiration and envy. Why did such a good seedling fall into the hands of Chao Guofeng and the few of them? This was simply feeding a white cabbage to pigs. What a waste of a good talent. If the ones who found this kid were them, how awesome would that be? Only Miao Jingyun had a slightly different expression. The same look of envy was tinged with a hint of joy and expectation. Turning around, he smiled at Chao Guofeng. I say, old Chao, what time is this already? The few of us come by so rarely. Could it be that you're intending to let us leave with an empty stomach? How are the preparations for lunch? This old man is really quite hungry already. Could it be that a single meal is going to empty your pockets? Let's start eating quickly. With the cultivation of this old fellow, not to mention skipping one meal, even if he didn't eat for 10 days straight, he wouldn't feel hungry at all. Quite clearly, he was not really hungry. He was simply using lunch as an excuse to steer the topic away. Chao Guofeng could clearly sense that the Manor Lord's attitude towards him had become much more casual. This kind of casualness represented a kind of acknowledgement, regard, and kinship. Saint Emperor Chao naturally knew his standing. Although his strength was high, having reached the 3rd level of Saint Emperor, it was still not enough for the Manor Lord to treat him differently. The only explanation for this was this precious disciple of his. In that moment, Chao Guofeng felt extremely moved. The reason for this was not Miao Jingyun's attention, but his darling disciple. How gladdening! Ah! Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 997. Master of the Family of Adultery. After shocking the crowd, young Master Jun finally decided that he'd shown off enough this time. This should be enough to stun everyone for quite some time. Satisfied with his work, he retracted his aura. Still, he felt somewhat annoyed at those fellows. This bunch of people's hearts were too weak. Every time this young master leveled up in the past, it was always leaping across several tens of levels. I've only skipped 3 levels this time, but this bunch of old fogies are already falling all over the ground with amazement. Originally, he was still planning that if these guys were still not shocked, he would continue breaking through. With 2 hours, he would once again break into the Jade Xian realm. Earth Xian. Sky Xian. But from the looks of things now, there was temporarily no need for such methods. He would save these breakthroughs for future needs. Slowly opening his eyes, young Master Jun saw the sea of heated gazes staring at him. What's going on? Why are all the seniors looking at me like that? I washed my face this morning, and I've also bathed yesterday. And there's no weird smell on my body. As he said that, he lifted up his arms and sniffed. Looking at the confused look on this free and natural physique prodigy's face, all these old people felt that their hundreds of years of cultivation and calm state of mind completely crumbling. To think that this kid was still confused even now. Kid, you've just broken through your own bottleneck. Didn't you feel it? Zhan Wuyun looked at him with an exceedingly strange gaze. Have I? Jun Mo Xie scratched his head innocently. I didn't feel anything. It didn't feel any different from normal cultivation. No matter how stable their minds were, all the old fogies found this exceptionally hard to accept. And they felt a faint feeling in their heads. Let's not ask any more. The free and natural physique of the legends is exactly like this. There are basically no such thing as bottlenecks and obstacles, so how would there be any feeling? Miao Jingyun shook his head dully and explained. Even if you asked him, he won't know. If he felt something, that would instead not be good. That is true. Manor Lord's words are logical. Everyone nodded with realization, and the way they looked at Jun Mo Xie became more fervent. Previously, they'd only heard of this, and it had sounded fine. But after witnessing the shocking scene before them, how could they remain unmoved? Old Chow, is your disciple married? The Zhang family's patriarch asked as he placed his hand around Chao Guofeng's shoulder in an extreme familiar manner. This old man has a granddaughter, young and beautiful as a flower. Their ages are very close together and could be said to be a match made in heaven. Since I don't have the fortune to get such a good disciple, it doesn't mean I can't use another method to be linked with him, right? Chao Guofeng swept the hand off his shoulder and smiled blandly. Please don't touch me. We're not that close with each other. I'm unworthy of this honor. Unworthy of this honor. Everyone here were all well-experienced old things. How could they not understand Saint Emperor Chao's words? There were 2 meanings in unworthy of this honor. One was a humble rejection. But the other meaning was a lofty meaning of rejection. What kind of person is my disciple? Do you think your granddaughter is worthy of the honor? Although the Zhang family's patriarch had been rejected, his actions had given the other patriarchs an inspiration. If they could successfully form a marriage alliance with this free and natural physique prodigy, their relationship might not be worse than a master-disciple relationship. Thus, numerous old heads instantly surrounded Chao Guofeng and the rest, and the area became as noisy as a wet market. Only Bai Chi Feng was sitting at the side unbothered. All the other patriarchs all knew that this guy was a brash fellow, and his words were often the most jarring to the ears. He was even extremely unreliable in his actions. Thus, nobody even bothered to discuss with him. It's not that they were worried he would reject them. That would not be surprising at all. But the main thing is that they were afraid that the words from this fellow's mouth would be too unbearable for them. If that happened, how awkward would they look? And the main thing was that they couldn't even retaliate. Even Gu Yunyang was hovering in front of Chao Guofeng, sticking his old face out. He was mostly speaking about the friendships in their youth. From the looks of it, the two had been friends when they were young. Saint Emperor Chao Guofeng had experienced all kinds of things in his life. But he'd never encountered such an awkward situation before. Surrounded by so many people, his brows were filled with sweat, and he looked exceptionally worn out. If that was all, it was still fine. But he could clearly feel a pair of eyes boring into his back like a stern warning, causing his shirt to be drenched with sweat. The sharp gaze naturally belonged to the misty illusory manners manor lord, Miao Jingyun. Old Chow clearly understood the meaning in that gaze. Old thing Chow, your disciple and my granddaughter's matter is still in a state of chaos. And my granddaughter has already gone so far for your disciple. If you still dare to set up anything more, this old man will roast you alive. Just as everyone was talking fervently, a hoarse voice suddenly rang out, causing everyone to stop, not knowing if they should laugh or cry. What? Please stop joking around. With those rotten seedlings you have at home, you actually have the face to think about having a share of this daddy's precious disciple? Zhan Wu Yun, did you eat the wrong medicine? Or did you forget to eat your medicine? Or perhaps you bought fake medicine? What nonsense are you spouting in broad daylight? These words were spoken quite loudly, and the speaker was none other than Saint Emperor Bai Chi Feng. Everyone turned over, only to see that Zhan Wu Yun's face was as red as a baboon's ass as he stared furiously at Bai Chi Feng. It turned out that Zhan Wu Yun had been struggling internally for a long time as well. He felt that it wouldn't be a bad idea if he could use a marriage relation to rope this free and natural physique prodigy with his rapid speed of advancement over to his side. At the same time, he could use this chance to dissolve the enmity between the two sides and even obtain the strength of 7 Saint Emperors to aid the Zhan family. This was a truly profitable deal. After making his decision, he was just about to speak when he saw that the other 6 Saint Emperors had all been pulled away by the others. If he went over at this time, it would definitely not have much use. After all, the two sides were not very harmonious right now. It also just happened that Bai Chi Feng spotted him standing there alone, so he walked over with big steps to look for him to settle scores. Seeing Bai Chi Feng walk towards him, Zhan Wu Yun also went up to him, taking the opportunity to express his intentions to select a good girl from his family to marry great prodigy Mo. That way, the two sides would both benefit, turning from enemies into friends. One had to say that Zhan Wu Yun's idea was really not bad. With Zhan Wu Yun's prestige, this move could not be said to be taking advantage of Mo Jun Xie and the 7 Saint Emperors. The two sides could be considered to be cooperating and working together mutually. However, the problem lied in that he had chosen the wrong person to propose his intentions to. If Zhan Wu Yun had looked for Chao Guofeng or the other 5 Saint Emperors to talk, they would at least discuss with him a little and not reject him outright. At most, they would use some soft words to reject him diplomatically. However, this great Zhan family patriarch actually went to talk to this extremely free Saint Emperor Bai Chi Feng. Bai Chi Feng was already on the verge of exploding from a bellyful of anger. Not to mention the matter of a marriage. Even if Zhan Wu Yun offered up the position of the patriarch of the Zhan family for Mo Jun Xie, he would very likely be booted back where he came from. After being scolded so ruthlessly in public, Zhan Wu Yun's face was completely red, and he could not retreat. Before he could say anything else, Bai Chi Feng continued fiercely. Why? Do you only know how to be scared now that you saw that our disciple has boundless potential? You think that by selling away a girl, this matter can be resolved? How is there such a good thing in this world? Besides, who dares to marry the women of your Zhan family? Which one of them is not a tigress or a vicious shrew, going out every other day to flirt around and commit unspeakable sins? Just like that lad who recently married into your Zhan family, wasn't he crushed to death by a massive green hat one in the end? With this kind of standard, You actually have the face to open your mouth? Zhan Wuyun could scarcely swallow the breath in his throat as he stared with wide eyes and pointed at Bai Qi Feng and spluttered, seemingly about to vomit out a mouthful of blood. Bai Qi Feng. You, what nonsense are you spouting? I'm spouting nonsense? How am I spouting nonsense? Ask anyone here. Which of them does not know of this matter? And you dare to say that this daddy is spouting nonsense? If this matter did not concern my disciple, this daddy would disdain even talking about the women of your Zhan family to avoid dirtying my mouth. Bai Qi Feng continued fearlessly. All the other old men were somewhat unable to listen further. But speaking of this matter, it was indeed a huge scandal of the Zhan family. The person involved in the scandal was a maiden of the Zhan family. After getting married last year, she was caught fooling around with a servant, angering her newly-wed husband to the point where he hung himself right outside the woodshed where the adulterous pair was committing their illicit crimes. But the adulterous pair was actually still in the midst of their passionate throes when they heard the commotion. Startled, the girl peered out of the door, only to see her newly-wed husband hanging right in front of her, with his tongue sticking out scarily. With a piercing scream, the two fled from the woodshed naked. And in that moment, they were even caught by the family's guards who happened to be patrolling the area. After that, the results were easily imaginable. Although the Zhan family tried their best to cover the matter up, it still managed to spread out. As the saying went, good news never left the house, while bad news spreads for 1,000 li very quickly. This matter became the subject of a massive joke in the misty illusory manner. Some folks even came up with a nickname for Zhan Wuyun, calling him the master of the family of adultery, as the patriarch of a noble aristocrat family. How would Zhan Wuyun be able to endure such humiliation? Following that, there were many instances of him breaking out into large fights with others. And from then on, nobody mentioned this matter anymore. A joke was a joke. But if it involved the pride and prestige of a head of family, that was a big problem. Not long after, Zhan Wuyun even executed the pair of adulterous couple, finally ending the matter. But who would have thought that at this time, his old scar would be dug up by Bai Qi Feng once again? So how could Zhan Wuyun not get angry? Zhan Wuyun was boiling with anger and was about to erupt at any time. But before his wrath could be vented, Bai Qi Feng continued again in a light and casual tone. If a marriage alliance was erected between us, and your Zhan family's woman starts fooling around after marrying in, finding an abandoned woodshed to do some unspeakable things, we can't afford such things here. Besides, your Zhan family may be able to afford the loss, but us brothers cannot afford to do so on our side. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 998. The Grudge-bearing Jun Mo Xie. Bai Qi Feng. You vulgar old bastard. I won't let you off today. Zhan Wuyun couldn't contain his rage as he dashed towards Bai Qi Feng. Come. Come at me. I've been waiting for you for a very long time. Bai Qi Feng wasn't going to back off. He laughed arrogantly and said, Dang. Daughters from your family can do those kind of things. So why can't we comment about it? It's time for me to teach you a lesson. Yes. You. Master of the family of adultery. Upon hearing master of the family of adultery, Zhan Wuyun was so furious that his eyes turned green. In the next moment, the two old men bashed into each other. Others could only see two figures in white circling around each other, forming a rising helix. Chao Guofeng shouted many times trying to stop them. However, the two of them just ignored him. The assassination of his favorite apprentice had already fueled Bai Qi Feng's anger. Now was the best chance to vent it all out. So why would he stop? Zhan Wuyun, on the other end, felt that he was wronged. He didn't do anything and he was sincere in thawing the relationship between the two families. How could he expect being humiliated in return? It's just an apprentice with the free and natural physique. What's the big deal? Does it give you the right to humiliate me? Others may be afraid of you, but the Zhan family isn't. Although the fight was not life-threatening for either side, it was not fake. The clouds above them were all torn into pieces. The impact of their fight was especially breathtaking because they were both at second-tier Saint Emperors and had paralleled power. However, those standing below them watching didn't feel any wind. Evidently, they still showed restraint. Enough. Miao Jingyun yelled at them with a stern face. The entire courtyard trembled from his voice. Ripples in the air were even visible. It took Jun Mo Xie by surprise. He stared in the direction of Miao Jingyun. He was sure that the master of the illusory manor was definitely above a Saint Emperor. It was a simple word, but it carried forces strong enough to tear through space itself. It was a simple word, but it demanded absolute subordination. And indeed, upon hearing him, Bai Qifeng and Zhan Wuyun immediately stopped. Look at the two of you. You are so old but still so compulsive. Enough is enough. If the two of you dare to fight again, I will deal with you according to the rules of the illusory manor. Miao Jingyun said slowly. Everyone present knew that if Miao Jingyun had stopped them, the fight wouldn't even start. However, if he didn't let them vent out their anger, they might cause more problems in the future. It was a very good management technique. Jun Mo Xie was aware of this and felt more respect for Miao Xiao Miao's grandfather. After everyone had lunch, the masters of each family had no more reasons to stay. Hence, they left one by one. When he was about to leave the place, Miao Jingyun addressed Jun Mo Xie directly. Little boy Mo, 3 days later will be my 500th birthday. Do come. All the other family masters turned to look at Jun Mo Xie. At this moment, the importance of Jun Mo Xie skyrocketed. Even the master of the illusory manor asked Jun Mo Xie to attend his birthday. It was a great honor for Jun Mo Xie. 500th birthday, and his granddaughter is only 19, wow. Jun Mo Xie complained in his mind. This old guy is too shameless. He's blatantly asking for a gift. How can a poor boy like me afford giving him any present? If the other masters knew what was on Jun Mo Xie's mind, Jun Mo Xie would have been flooded by their saliva as they chastised him. How would someone like Miao Jingyun care about your gift? Can you even produce something worthy? Obviously, in that sense, they would have underestimated how much Jun Mo Xie owned. Although they definitely didn't know, but anyone would fight their heads off trying to obtain any of Jun Mo Xie's treasures. After Jun Mo Xie agreed, Miao Jingyun nodded with satisfaction. He then briefed the 7 Saint Emperors about the meeting in the afternoon and asked them to go to the main palace. Finally, he left with a smile and the other masters disappeared immediately. Seeing the 7 Saint Emperors look over in his direction, Jun Mo Xie knew what was coming. They wanted to question him about the breakthrough just now. Jun Mo Xie immediately thought of a way to deal with them. He yawned and made a sleepy face and he mumbled. So tired. I didn't sleep well last night. Then go and sleep. The 7 hollered with care in unison. Jun Mo Xie quickly escaped back into his room. Such a crude trick works too. The room Jun Mo Xie went to was no longer his original one. It was now located by the walls of the courtyard and his justification was perfect, to gather more heaven-earth spiritual qi. The new location naturally made it more convenient for Jun Mo Xie. He let out a sigh of relief as he closed the door behind him. In the afternoon, the 7 Saint Emperors warned Jun Mo Xie again and again not to leave the room before finally reluctantly leaving for the meeting. The meeting was obviously about the future of Jun Mo Xie. Thus the 7 of them must be present. After making sure that the 7 of them had left, Jun Mo Xie told the servants that he was going to sleep and no one was to disturb him. He then went back to his room and used the yin-yang escape to leave the courtyard. The sun was generously lighting up every corner of the world, but Jun Mo Xie still moved with absolute stealth. The yin-yang escape was indeed an overpowered technique. As Jun Mo Xie traveled at a breakneck speed, he seemed to be hearing the blood of yellow flame resonating with killing intent. Yes, the killing intent originally concealed within him was growing exponentially. Zhan Qingfeng and Zhan Qingfeng had plotted against him multiple times. As a grudge-bearing character, it was a miracle that Jun Mo Xie could contain his wrath until now. But now, there was no longer a need for him to show restraint. Previously he wanted to gain access to the spiritual herbal gardens, so he kept a low profile. Now, with his access granted, he had no more concerns. Of course, he was going to be the unscrupulous one again. As long as he didn't expose his real identity, he could do anything. Provoking the great Jun Mo Xie and having such perverted thoughts about Miao Xiao Miao deserved a much heavier punishment than just being grounded. They had to be killed. As he moved faster and faster, he also gained altitude. Soon, he was above a huge, thin sheet of cloud. He looked down at the mountains beneath him. The main palace occupied the main peak while 8 smaller peaks circled around it. It was obviously for the 8 main families of the illusory manor. As Jun Mo Xie paid more attention to the details, he realized that the position of the 9 peaks followed precisely the positions of Jiugong 1. The formation of Jiugong entailed the coordinated response of the entire formation to any disturbances. All of this could only be seen at this very altitude. No one living on the peaks would ever be aware. Jun Mo Xie couldn't help thinking that he had just uncovered a new secret exclusive to him. Furthermore, the main peak conveyed a sense of justness, authority, and neutrality while the other 8 peaks each produced their own unique aura. It was also a huge feng shui arrangement. The arrangement ensured the continuity and longevity of the illusory manor as long as the main peak was peaceful and stable. The creation of these configurations was beyond the capability of any human being, but it was too precise to be naturally formed. The only possibility was that a being that had superhuman abilities created it. It could only be the 9 Nether First Young Master. Jun Mo Xie could not help but exclaim at the dedication and good taste the 9 Nether First Young Master had when he created the illusory manor. Then, it occurred to Jun Mo Xie that the 7 cities located within the special dimensions of the misty illusory manor also bore their own secrets. Although Jun Mo Xie had never seen it personally, he was quite certain that the 7 cities must be aligned in a way that formed the Big Dipper or the 7 luminaries too. It would most likely be in the formation of the Big Dipper, so that the main peak would not only be the center of the Jiugong arrangement but also be in the position of Polaris with respect to the 7 cities. No wonder the misty illusory manor is so much more powerful than the 3 holy lands. They are being blessed by feng shui arrangements. Jun Mo Xie was amused. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 999. Does heaven truly exist? Smacking his lips with amazement, Jun Mo Xie observed the 8 mountain peaks seriously. He needed to determine which of these peaks belonged to the Zhan family just by their auras. The auras of these 8 large families were very different. so it should not be hard to distinguish. The Jun family could also be said to be the #1 aristocrat family of the misty illusory manor right now, with strong experts. So it should not be difficult to identify them based on feng shui. Jun Mo Xie narrowed his eyes and checked according to the Hongjun Pagoda's records on feng shui. The most eastern peak should belong to the Miao family. Right now, the Miao family's aura was already weakening obviously. Among the 8 peaks, nearly every peak had a dazzling red light piercing towards the heavens, merging together with the main peak. Only the Miao family's aura was significantly weaker. Quite clearly, in terms of aura, it was far from reaching the standards of the other families. This was something to be expected. The misty illusory manor had always been led by the Miao family. As time passed, the Miao family members naturally grew complacent. But every time the power structure of the misty illusory manor changed, or even within internal positions of the Miao family changed, it would greatly affect their fortune. And by this point, the Miao family's luck could be said to have deteriorated to an extremely dangerous level. If the position of the manor lord changed hands, while the other families would also be affected, they wouldn't be affected that greatly. But for the Miao family, they would exhaust their last bit of fortune, completely losing everything. And it just so happened that the Jun family's current strength was too overpowering. Their intention to usurp the top position was already obvious with a glance. With the large power difference, the Miao family's fortune could easily be seen as they deteriorated with each passing day. Among the 8 peaks, the mountain on the west side was the most powerful. The red light shining from it was the most dazzling. With its strong momentum, it could even affect the most prominent peak. There was a big and arrogant aura bursting from it. Among the 8 mountain peaks, this peak's luck and destiny were the most prosperous. Even, compared to the prominent peak, it was not much worse. Obviously, this place was where the Jun family was located. However, Jun Mo Xie felt a strange sensation from that place. From that impressive red light, there was a kind of extremely disharmonious feeling, although it was very concealed. But the feeling was still very obvious. Even after he saw it, he could feel a deep hair-raising feeling from the bottom of his heart. This red light is a little too dominating, as if it wants to directly swallow and usurp the position of the owner. Jun Mo Xie mused with interest. How can there be such a thing? Even if they're trying to take over everything, it shouldn't be to that extent, truly queer. After sensing the strangeness, young Master Jun flew even higher into the sky to have a better view of the situation. As he rose into the sky, past the clouds and hovered directly above the Jun family's red light of destiny, he finally realized what it was. At the core position of this red light, there was actually an exceedingly powerful aura of Yin evil. It was this bout of Yin Qi sinking down that forcefully intercepted the red light from the Miao family's mountain, suppressing it. Even more ridiculous was that it was using some unknown method to pull the Miao family's luck away, transferring it to the Jun family's side. With the fortune of the 2 most powerful families combined into one, it resulted in such a strange scene. So that's how it is. Jun Moxie furrowed his brows and muttered. It seems that there's someone in the Jun family that knows the change of feng shui. It should be a great master of that field to be able to do something so grand. Assuming this is the case, the Jun family's conspiracy should have at least ran from several generations ago, carried out over an extremely long time. How truly deep and scheming. Jun Mo Xie snorted coldly. Based on the situation right now, the peace and stability of the misty illusory manor will be advantageous to the Miao family, Chao Guofeng, and the rest. In that case, I shall eradicate this biggest danger of the misty illusory manner and take the chance to express my gratitude to these people. As he thought till here, Jun Mo Xie roused his yin-yang escape art to its maximum speed. With a whoosh sound, he instantly shot down like a sharp sword, stabbing towards that copious luck of the Zhan family. Regardless of what of tiger or dragon's lair your Zhan family is, this daddy is here going to turn your place upside down since I'm here now. If you want to scheme against me, you must endure the rage and vengeance of my wrath. At this time, Zhan Wuyun had just returned and was inside the secret chamber, holding a discussion with their core members. At this moment, inside the entire secret chamber, there were only 6 people in total. 4 of them had never appeared in any of the family's secret meetings before. As for the other 2, they were the patriarch Zhan Wuyun and Zhan Luanhui. As for the other 4, the one sitting in the centermost position was an aged man with skinny limbs and yellowish skin. He seemed like a walking corpse, and there was barely any flesh under his skin. It was as if he was only made up of skin that covered his bones. This person was an ancestor-level character of the Zhan family, called Zhan Tianji. He was a legendary character of the misty illusory manor over 3,000 years ago, nicknamed Son of Heaven's Secrets. On his left was a person with ruddy complexion, with an appearance of only around 50, 60 years old. This person had a benevolent and kind countenance, a face filled with a benignant look. Even if he wasn't speaking, he would be looking on with a gentle smile. This was a neural trait of his from birth, and the word smile, xiao, was even included in his name, Zhan Yi Xiao. At a glance, he seemed exceedingly friendly and approachable. However, this was a fellow with the face of a Buddha and the heart of a snake. A person who hid daggers behind his smiles. Back when he roamed the pugilistic world, he was known as the Smiling Butcher. The fearsomeness of this fellow could be easily imagined. As for the person on the right, his appearance was the exact opposite of Zhan Yi Xiao. His expression was cold and calm, naturally causing others to stay far away from him. This person's eyes were as ferocious as a savage wolf, while his heart was vicious and cold. His name was Zhan Tu. As for the outermost person, it was a middle-aged man who looked like a merchant. His exuded a wealthy look about him, while his face was plain and mediocre without any distinctive features. He looked like the kind of person that if you tossed into a crowd of people, it would be difficult to find him again. But this person was actually the most terrifying among the 4. This person had a shocking record of slaughtering over 3,000 people in the span of a single night. Furthermore, after committing such a massacre, he actually returned home at dawn, without a single shred of killing intent on his body. This person was unsurprisingly named Earth-Penetrating Hand, Zhan Xiao. If one listened to his name alone, they would think that it was a girl's name. Who would have imagined that such a person was actually the most terrifying one among the 4 savage murderers? But only such calmness could truly be called terrifying. These 4 people of the Zhan family were all incredible existences with unfathomable strengths. But here, they could only sit at the side. Even the patriarch Zhan Wuyun could only sit at the side as well. As for the person sitting in the centermost position, it was actually Zhan Luanhui. You've seen that free and natural physique kid today? What are your thoughts? Zhan Luanhui's pale face exuded a strange, devilish feeling under the faint illumination of the light in the secret chamber. Zhan Wuyun sucked in a deep breath and said with a serious look, "Very strong. His potential is extremely great. Today, I've witnessed with my own eyes this Mo Jun Xie's breakthrough from Silver Xian to Golden Xian. There's no way to fake this at all." Did a miracle really appear there? Jean Hui's eyes were the color of dead ash when he looked at Zhang Wuyun. Even someone close to him like Zhang Wuyun felt a chill running down his spine. Yes. The plants there could grow instantly. There's also no way to fake such a thing. Zhang Wuyun replied honestly. In that case, this Mo Jun Xie is really a talent sent down by the heavens? Jean Hui's voice was actually filled with surprise. The heavens and earth actually produced a miracle because of his presence. That means. He paused at this point, not speaking any further. However, his gaze was bright, no longer that same ash-gray color. Instead, it gleamed with hope and expectation. Zhang Xiao and the others exchanged a glance, and they nodded lightly. After that, Zhang Luanhui continued slowly. So, the legendary heavens truly exists. The heavens are real. These words had caused Zhang Wuyun's brains to thoroughly freeze. Because he could finally understand what this old Zhang family ancestor was truly after. However, it doesn't matter if he's the free and natural physique of the legends, or a person sent by the heavens. Right now, he's just an ant with non-existent cultivation. Kiki. The few of us could easily snuff his life out and scatter his soul with but a mere wave of an arm. Wu Yun. What was their reaction when you initiated good intentions towards them? Zhang Luanhui tapped his skinny fingers lightly against the table. Although he had the appearance of a youngster, this action of his was something that only an old man would do. They didn't agree. In fact, that debauchee phone even dug at the scandalous matter of our Zhang family in the past, thoroughly humiliating me. In a fit of anger, I exchanged a few blows with him. Just mentioning this matter caused a bellyful of anger to rise through Zhang Wuyun's chest. Huh. They truly think that a single free and natural physique prodigy is enough to decide everything? A chilly light shone in Zhang Luanhui's eyes. Wu Yun. The free and natural physique is a legendary thing of the past 10,000 years. We cannot afford to gamble on it. If he manages to mature, he will be a force that no one can control. Since we cannot use him, we must eradicate him. The future of the misty illusory manor has to be grasped in our Zhang family's hands. Only that way can we access that secret in the main peak of the misty illusory manor and open up the legendary path to heaven. Zhang Luanhui raised his eyes and looked quietly at the faraway space, sighing lightly. A matter that old ancestor, the Nine Nether First Young Master, can achieve. Is it something that us of the later generation cannot emulate? With the same techniques, can we really still not reach the fabled peak of cultivation? Do we really have to destroy this free and natural physique? Zhang Wuyun gasped with surprise. He'd never truly had this thought cross his mind. After all, the fact that the free and natural physique prodigy could grow quickly was not considered a bad thing for the misty illusory manor. Right now, the Zhang family was primed to replace the Miao family as the lord of the misty illusory manor. The free and natural physique prodigy was someone who belonged to the misty illusory manor. So in the future, it would be no different to him belonging to the Zhang family. It should be a good thing that he grows quickly. Why was there a need to destroy him? Wasn't that too much of a waste of a heavenly treasure? You still don't understand? In that case, you've really disappointed me. A disobedient and uncontrollable person, no matter how talented, or how much potential they have, must be quickly eradicated. For the sake of power, even family can turn on each other. Have you not seen enough of them? Moreover, this concerns the control over the entire misty illusory manor. You wish to be the misty illusory manor's manor lord, but do you think that others don't have the same ambition? Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1000. Infiltration. Zhan Luanhui looked at Zhan Wuyun coldly. Right now, you only see the free and natural physique prodigy becoming the guardian of the misty illusory manor after he grows. That naturally makes him the guardian of the Zhan family's future. But did it ever occur to you that after what had happened yesterday, that free and natural physique prodigy may have already noticed the Zhan family's hostility? If it were you, would you allow yourself to be controlled by an enemy that is weaker than you for the sake of the bigger picture? I won't. Cold sweat rained from Zhan Wuyun's forehead. Then is there still a need to be hesitant? If that free and natural physique really develops into an invincible existence as the legends have it, it shall be the moment the Zhan family is completely doomed for. Zhan Luanhui scoffed. Although this is just a guess, or even a mere possibility, we cannot take the risk. The 10,000 years of the Zhan family's establishments cannot be placed upon a chance. We must destroy every single possibility that sprouts. Zhan Luanhui paused for a while before continuing. Especially the matter you mentioned, of him breaking through on the spot. This confirmed that this person is the real free and natural physique. There is no need to doubt this anymore. Precisely because of this, we must get rid of him. And fast. Jun Mo Xie had never imagined that his little show in the afternoon became the reason why Zhan Luanhui absolutely must destroy him. The reason why he had chosen to put on a show of breaking through before everyone was naturally not purely for the sake of showing off. First, he already had the quota for entering the spiritual herbal gardens. So Jun Mo Xie must continue to increase his bargaining chips. Showing off his incomparable gift was a build-up for him after he entered the spiritual herbal gardens. As to the second reason, it was also to tell Miao Jingyun, as well as all the patriarchs of the 8 influential families, to stop their designs on him. Someone that the Manor Lord of Misty Illusory Manor had personally affirmed, all of you better stop your little tricks. Give me a more flexible space and don't hinder me. From the expressions of the patriarchs when they left, it was clear that these 2 objectives were accomplished perfectly. As to the third reason, it was to strike water right and left. I may be a prodigy and also have a shocking advancement speed that no one else can compare to, but right now, I only have the strength of a golden Xian. The future path is still long, so you guys better think about how to get my favors. This was also a very important point and very beneficial for him to operate within the misty illusory manor. In fact, it even helped to pave the way for the moment he leaves. It can be said that Jun Mo Xie's objectives were all accomplished perfectly. But things were always unexpected. Young Master Jun had never imagined that in the ambitious eyes of the Zhan family, his showing off of his gift, his biggest selling point, turned out to be the reason why he must die. But who was it that would die? This remained to be seen. Because Mo Junyi with the free and natural physique was only a disguise. Young Master Jun's current strength was relatively terrifying. Xiao Xiao. Since last time, you never appeared before anyone. I believe you're a stranger to Misty Illusory Manor today. So I intend to hand the mission of killing the free and natural physique to you. A hint of maliciousness appeared on Zhan Luanhui's youthful face. If Chao Guofeng tries to interrupt, there's no harm getting rid of him as well. Zhan Luanhui ordered. All right, I will do my best. A solemn look appeared on Zhan Xiao Zhao's smiling Buddha-like face. Deploying a saint venerable to kill a golden Xian. If anyone heard of this, they might lose all their teeth from laughing so hard. But Zhan Xiao knew that his mission was definitely not easy. Because that was still ultimately the owner of the free and natural physique. The future of a free and natural physique was not something that even a saint venerable could match. With the high regard the misty illusory manner placed on the free and natural physique, aside from the 7 saint emperors, there were definitely other experts secretly protecting him. It was not completely impossible for him to fail or even not make it back from this mission. So Zhan Xiao did not take it carelessly. He mustn't and he didn't dare to. Since we've decided to get rid of him, then we must do it immediately. The most effective method is making a decision quickly. Although a worthy match is hard to find, trying to nurture him into a future opponent is just an act of stupidity and digging your own graves. Zhan Luanhui snorted coldly, the corner of his lips twitching as he seemed to recall something. Then he tilted his head back and pondered for a long while. Tianji, has there been anything unusual with the feng shui positions? Zhan Tianji instantly replied with a serious expression. There is nothing unusual. The feng shui from the Miao family is still slowly flowing towards here as usual. I believe that it will completely blend into our families soon. When that time comes, even if a feng shui master notices it, they cannot do anything about it. But I still feel that something is amiss. Zhan Luanhui squinted his eyes. Or perhaps because things have been progressing too smoothly, making me feel uneasy. Right now, I'm extremely suspicious that my master is still at that period of time, AI. If it's still there. Then Zhan Luanhui's temper suddenly flared and he dismissed everyone. All of you, go. Do what you should do. Then he turned around, facing the black wall, only giving everyone else his back view. Although he had never said anything, but his first half of the sentence shook the hearts of all the 5 people present. Zhan Luanhui's master. Miao Qingcheng. That person, where was he at? Why was there such a question? Could it be Miao Qingcheng, the founding ancestor of the Miao family, the first lord of the misty illusory manor, the only disciple of the 9 nether first young master? The 9 nether first young master first created misty illusory manor, but Miao Qingcheng single-handedly brought it to heights to its grandeur and scale today. The entire misty illusory manor was filled with traces of Miao Qingcheng. After Miao Qingcheng developed the misty illusory manor, he took in a total of 8 disciples, which were the ancestors of the 8 great families. Zhan Luanhui was the oldest disciple amongst the 8, the ancestor of the entire Zhan family. No wonder the Zhan family was so respectful towards him. Miao Qingcheng had already become a meaningful legend in misty illusory manor, only second to the legend of the 9 nether first young master. Could it be he is still alive? Everyone exchanged looks, feeling that this thought they had was absurd. They nodded their heads in response and were about to leave. All of a sudden, Zhan Luanhui suddenly stood up. 2 green glows shot from his pale skin. There is an intruder in the Zhan manor. Go and investigate now. Someone has barged in. How could it be possible? Zhan Wuyun was stunned. This was something that no one dared to believe. Since the Zhan family developed its ambitious goal of becoming lord, the basement under the Zhan manor was a place for secret activities. Aside from the purest blood-related descendants of the Zhan family, no one else was allowed in there. This secret had been kept thoroughly. None of the other families even knew that there was another underground world of the Zhan family. Even within the Zhan family, less than 20 people knew of this underground place. Such a secretive place. How could there be any outsiders barging in? This is the energy of a soul. The smell of humans. My senses are never wrong. There is an intruder. Hurry up and go. Check thoroughly. Zhan Luanhui said ruthlessly. Using the heaven-defying concealing abilities of the yin-yang escape, Jun Mo Xie rushed right into the Zhan manor brazenly, casually grabbing a couple of people along the way and using the Great Spirit deterrence technique with hypnosis to find out where the two brothers of the Zhan family were. Although there were many people in the Zhan family, there were a limited number of them who were allowed to partake in the discussions of the higher-ups in the family. So those who knew of the location of the two brothers were even less. After consecutively interrogating over 10 people, Jun Mo Xie finally found out from a higher-up that these two unlucky brothers had been arranged to go through the 9 Nethers soul refining somewhere. As to where, even fewer people knew of the exact location. They only knew it was somewhere underground. Young Master Jun was highly skilled and bold, and he had the miraculous yin-yang escape, plus the great fanfare he had came in with. There was no way he was going to return empty-handed. So he continued to charge his way in at shocking speed. Within seconds, he was already underground and inside the secret underground world of the Zhan family. This underground world was an absolute secret to anyone in this world. Even if it was the 9 Nether 14th young master who had arrived here, he may find it difficult to move as he pleased. But to young Master Jun, who had the perverse abilities of the power of earth and yin-yang escape, it was as easy as going for a stroll in his own backyard. The Zhan family was extremely stringent in handling this matter. All the servants in charge of household matters in the underground world were forbidden from stepping out for their entire lives. Those who defied would be killed. Some of these people were born and grew up here and had never seen sunlight. So all of them looked like zombies. They were all deathly pale, with no color in their faces. Jun Mo Xie thought he went into a world of white people and was shocked. Fecking hell. These people are whiter than my teeth. Even those real foreigners are not this white. They are really terrifyingly white. It was more simple this time. He managed to find out the location for the 9 Nethers soul refining after catching 2 people and using the Great Spirit deterrence technique. As expected, the locals were more familiar with the place. And this time, young Master Jun did not use any hypnosis afterward because there was no need to conceal anything. All those servants from the Zhan family that he used the Great Spirit deterrence technique on all laid there like a vegetable. Their life and souls were already shattered and beyond repair. This story will be continued to chapter 1001. For those of you who are not subscribed yet, please subscribe. The interesting and best stories will be updated. See you again in the next episode.